This is your number one source for all things comics, movies, and pop culture. It's Geek Week with Chris and Nick.
And you're tuned into Geek Week.
I'm Chris Natale.
And I'm Nick Rotundo.
To all those listening, thank you for joining our discussion.
And if you happen to miss last week or even our first episode, you can hear it on our SoundCloud account at www.soundcloud.com/geekweek885. Also, if you like what you hear on WRKC, be sure to follow them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at 88.5 FM WRKC as well.
This week's topic, we're going to talk about underappreciated characters in comics, and we're going to start with Marvel characters. Nick, you want to take it away with Arcade?
Of course. So, if you do remember, some of you guys don't, depending how old you are. If you've played the Ultimate Alliance game, you'll know who this is. Arcade was this character who's a villain who kills people by trapping them in his amusement park called Murder World. Basically, his backstory is kind of unknown, and his identity is fairly unknown, almost like the Joker, which I know you're a big Batman fan, so you can appreciate that. But he had his own little world, like just his own level in Marvel's Ultimate Alliance video game, where you get trapped in this almost amusement park, and he treats you like it's a video game. Like, I mean, it is a video game, but he talks to the superheroes as if like you're in a video game and you have to fight your way through to get to me, which I thought was really cool because he knows a lot about technology. He's almost like
I feel like he's like DC's like Riddler in the sense that he's really smart and he knows how to use technology in order to, like, he doesn't mess with the mind though. He kind of physically hurts people. So that's his shtick.
I agree. I believe he is pretty much just an Avengers villain, and I fell in love with the character when I was playing the game just because of the fact that I never heard of this character, and yet here I am with 4 superheroes trying to take him down, and I'll tell you, I failed a couple times, but I enjoyed it. So I know you want to take it away to the next person because you love them so much.
Blade. His real name's Eric Brooks. If you haven't seen the live-action movies, you should. And he also has an anime out, which I didn't really know until I looked more into the character. His whole thing I thought was really cool about him is that he was infused at birth by the vampire that killed his mother. This makes him immune to vampire bites. He has powers like strength and regeneration. And since he's like half human, half vampire, it excludes him from vampires' weaknesses, making him like the perfect vampire hunter. In the sense, he's not sensitive to sunlight or garlic or silver and any vampire's weaknesses, and he pretty much takes them out in order to protect humanity, which is awesome. And I really think he should get his own Netflix series because he's awesome. I feel like these characters need to get more spotlight.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, Wesley Snipes, let's be real here, he was an amazing pick for the role when they did the first couple movies. Honestly, I don't think I've watched them even recently. If I have watched them, it's a foggy memory. Mm-hmm. But did he have like a mentor?
I think Blade had a mentor of some. I think so. I just think he had to kill the mentor because the mentor got bitten and turned into a vampire. So
what I think would be really cool if Marvel decided to give a nice little throwback to Wesley Snipes and have him come back to play the mentor of Blade.
I think there was a reboot talks like a year ago. So you never know.
They own the rights now.
So it'd be cool to see that. I would agree. All right, well, we're gonna kick it off to Nick, and he's gonna talk about Namor, the Submariner.
Namor, also another person in the Ultimate Alliance game. One of the first superheroes ever created, obviously. It was kind of a nice little competition between Marvel and DC. At the time, it wasn't called Marvel. It was called Timely Comics. And actually, it was their competition to, I would guess you would call it Superman, right? I mean, however, he's very similar to DC's Aquaman, which I think they were the ones that took Namor.
Namor inspired Aquaman.
Yeah. So Namor actually in Atlantean tongue means avenging sun. So we'll get into that a little bit. First, he's the sole heir to the kingdom of Atlantis in the Marvel universe. So obviously his parents must have had to die. So avenging sun, he's becoming the Atlantean ruler, and he's avenging his parents' deaths, which I thought was cool because his name actually like symbolizes what he goes out and does. So with that, he also was first seen in the comic book when they were Timely Comics. He was part of Marvel's first superhero group, the Invaders, or the first super group, the Invaders. I do remember he was an anti-hero and a mutant. He was actually the first anti-hero and mutant. And the Invaders were, I believe, evil at one point. I
think so. Namor actually became a villain, which is funny because at first he was a good guy, and then he became like an anti-hero. And fun fact, he's the first anti-hero in all of comics, and as well as the first mutant. And the transition from becoming a hero to an anti-hero to villain, he's been them all. So I think that's another thing to like about Namor. I don't really see much with him, and I'd like to see more. Another cool thing is that like he's different from Aquaman in the sense that he has wings on his feet. He's like inspired by like Hermes kind of, because those wings can help him fly too. So he is like Marvel's answer to like Superman, because they gave him flight, they gave him strength, they gave him invulnerability, they gave him a lot.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
So I
feel like there was talks a couple of years ago about doing Namor for whether it was a movie or like TV or whatever it was, Netflix, and I want to say it was not George Takei. It was like because he's too old, but there was talks of like someone playing him, and like I want to say it was Glenn from The Walking Dead, which I thought would be pretty cool. But I forget exactly who. I think the guy from Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift. I think he was in talks maybe. I think that's who it was. So
they're going for that'd be cool to see. I'd like to see like Namor on screen, or even in animated stuff.
Oh, without a doubt.
So the next thing we're gonna kick off to is the X-Men, and there are certain X-Men that really don't get much appreciation in comics. Just to name a few: Jubilee, Sunspot, Warpath, and Bishop. And Nick and I are gonna be talking about all four of those. So Jubilee, her original name is Jubilation Lee. She's a popular mutant of the '90s. She's a mall rat, in line to be an Olympic athlete, which I thought was pretty cool. And she's orphaned at a young age. Her power is pretty much what she did in her first comic was she's at a mall and she's like kind of showing off these kind of fireworks and stuff like that. So her power is like the ability to generate pyrotechnic energy plasmoids, that's what they call them, from her hands, and they can be used as explosions or flares. And it was cool because she used both her power and her athleticism in this comic, because guards are like, oh, she can't be doing that. Like, even though everybody in the mall was enjoying it, so they were just like, oh, we have to get her. And she jumped did a full somersault over these guards and got out of the way and used her like pyrotechnic blasts to like blind them to get away. I thought that was cool. Marvel thought this was boring. Really don't understand how, because like
I thought it was. We saw you and I think saw Apocalypse, or no, I talked to you about that.
Yeah, it would have been cool to see a scene with her in the mall. Like I feel like that was a nod to this, because they all Nightcrawler, her, Scott went to the mall. And Jean went to the mall, and they came back. But it would have been cool to have a scene, and I feel like it's going to be in the like added bonus scenes.
I heard there's a deleted scene where they're at the mall, which would be cool. Really cool to see.
So Marvel thought it was boring, and they made her into a vampire, and I'm all for vampires because Blade's pretty cool. But like, you didn't. Why? That's my only question. Like, why did you have to do that? But then they realized, I guess, later on, because I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and she read this X-Men 92 comic where they brought her original powers back. I thought that was awesome, because I'm like, that power is pretty sick. Like, and you're using your athleticism, not even just your powers, but to get around and get like overcome challenges. I thought that was great.
Yeah, at least they decided not to do that for Apocalypse when they brought in Jubilee. I'm glad they brought her in how they did, and they didn't give her the vampire powers. I feel like, we're talking about Jubilee, we have Blade. All of a sudden, this is becoming like, oh, let's make vampires into comics now. I feel like that's what it was.
Vampires
back in the day.
are
Yeah,
cool, and I do
yes.
appreciate them. I just feel
not
like
the sparkly
Blade,
ones. We don't talk about those.
Blade is good how he is, and Jubilee should still just have her powers. That's pretty much it.
I agree on that. So the next one we got is Sunspot, a.k.a. Roberto da Costa. He was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Fun fact, also where the Olympics were this year. Skilled soccer player before his powers manifested, and he was a member of the New Mutants. His powers are able to absorb solar energy and metabolize it into physical strength, flight, or rechannel it as heat or infrared radiation. When doing so, Sunspot, you can see his features melt away into a black mass of crackling dark energy. And we actually saw that in... Was that not First Class?
No, it was in Days of Future Past. Yeah, when they're fighting all the Sentinels, the newer Sentinels. I thought that was cool because he's like Human Torch in a way, but it's black instead of just fire color. I thought it was interesting.
And what's also crazy is, I mean, I don't know if they showed this really in Days of Futures Past, but in unlighted places, DaCosta suffers a slight drop in his power level. So they were in a building in Days of Futures Past, and he was using his powers. So
they were also outside too, which is pretty dark. Yeah. Like the sun was like not around at all.
It looked so decrepit.
It must have been hard for him to use his powers then and fight those Sentinels, because if the sun was out, he'd be at his strongest. You know?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But I thought he was a pretty cool character, especially since it's like black magma fire thing. It looked sick when I was watching. He was
part of my inspiration for my. What I created my superhero in my class called Pyre. He was kind of an inspiration for that, because Pyre is like a flame hero. But
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's a fun time. The next character I'm going to talk about is Warpath, James Proudstar. He was also in Days of Future Past. He'd scouted ahead to find out if the Sentinels were coming, and he would always be able to like warn Bishop in advance so that they would get away and reset themselves back in time, which is cool. So his whole thing is his older brother joined the X-Men, taking the name Thunderbird, but he died in one of his early missions. James Proudstar blamed himself, or Professor X, for his brother's death, and he accepted an invitation from Emma Frost to join the Hellions. And Emma, as we all know, Emma Frost is pretty darn evil.
Oh yes, Crystal Lady.
He used his brother's name in his memory, so he called himself Thunderbird at first. And after attempting to defeat the X-Men and realizing they were not to blame for his death, he dropped his vendetta against them. He was like, "No, I'm not going to do this anymore," and he became the leader of the Hellions. Years later, Cable asked him to join the X-Force, and as you know, a lot of people associate Cable with Deadpool, and Cable is I think one of the few sons or few offspring of Jean and Scott Summers.
Yes, and actually, Cable was the leader of X-Force. I believe he was also the leader of the New Mutants.
I think so too.
Because I remember when I bought Deadpool, the reissue of they did a reissue of Deadpool #1 for the new movie that was coming out this past year, obviously, and it was the New Mutants '92, and they decided to just reboot it, and it was not a reboot, it was just a reissue, and it showed Cable in it. So X-Force, obviously, we got Domino, we have Cable, we have Deadpool in a
Phantom X.
Phantom X, I forgot about that, yeah. And of course, they're all wearing that nice little black and gray.
I'd love to see an X-Force movie.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Oh, man.
How awesome would it be, though, to see Wolverine in that X-Force movie, too?
I just want to see your Wolverine in his original costume. Then I would love to see like him. It would be great. Just to continue about Warpath, Cable asked him to join the X-Force, like we were talking about. James originally refused, but he returned home and found that everyone in the Hellion club was slaughtered. I don't know what happened. He vowed revenge on all this, and he kind of accepted Cable's offer to be part of the X-Force and took on the name Warpath instead.
And he is Native American, so I think that was actually kind of cool. He is this guy who scouts ahead, and he took on the name Warpath, which was kind of going with the Native American thing, where all of his people in his reservation have died, and now he's on a warpath for revenge.
I see what you did there. But his just in case you didn't know, his powers include enhanced strength, speed, durability, reflexes, senses, and the power of flight, which I didn't really know because he didn't fly in the movie, and I was like, I was like, you have flight powers?
It was kind of like how almost the reverse of like what they did with Superman, like in the comics, how he had super jump, and then they were like, well, it's kind of hard to like film that for a movie, so we're just gonna make him fly.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was the opposite. They just made him do like super jumps.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, next we're gonna kick it off. Nick's gonna kick it off to Bishop.
Right, of course, Lucas Bishop, born in the 21st century of an alternate future timeline in which the mutant hunting robot Sentinels have taken over control over all of North America. His powers, he can absorb energy, either ambient energy or that directed towards him, and use it to project that energy from his body in the form of concussive blasts. We saw that in also Days of Future Past. I think they casted him very well. Bishop can also store absorbed energy within his within his personal reserves, whereupon the energy increases his strength and healing abilities, as well as affording him limited. He's basically just indestructible, which is insane. Also, he instinctively knows his location at all times. We saw him work alongside Kitty Pryde and Iceman, as well as a bunch of other X-Men in Days of Futures Past, where he used this gun that is hooked up to his body, where he takes the energy and uses it and puts it into the gun where he shoots, which was nuts to see. I was so happy they decided to include him finally.
He's an awesome character. I didn't really know much about him until like we had to like kind of research and look into his history and stuff like that, his powers, abilities, all that. And he was cool to see. He really made the movie interesting. Even though he didn't really speak much, he still had like a presence.
Right. And of course, the big presence was that big M tattoo or scar, depending on which variation you look at, over his right eye for mutant identification, which the Sentinels did to mutants, almost like the Holocaust, where Magneto had numbers tattooed on him because obviously he's Jewish and was part of the Holocaust.
Yeah, I didn't know that M stood for mutant. I didn't want to assume and just like, oh yeah, that's what it stands for because like they're the X-Men.
Right.
But when I found out, I was like, okay, I can deal with that. Like that's cool. And the M gives him a lot of character too. Like you're just like, wow, this guy's been through a lot.
He broke out, obviously. Yeah. So I think with that though, I love how the X-Men have always been like the almost like comic version of real life situations in the sense of like oppression and stuff like that. Like we've seen Magneto survive the Holocaust, and then it goes into we're going to re-implement that into a future timeline where Bishop and all the other mutants are being hunted down by Sentinels in a sense. So it's like, hey guys, we're doing the same story just in a different scenario, which I loved because it makes you really think about like how people are.
The X-Men are great characters to read. I've loved them since I was a kid, and the reason is like they have limited abilities. They're not invulnerable like Superman is, like in the sense that they can do all these different things. And I like that each of them has their own ability and has weaknesses. And granted, Superman is kryptonite and magic, but it's just cool to see that in characters because they're all like kind of their own independent character instead of just like you can group them together. You like X-Men as a whole, but you could also like them individually. I thought that was pretty cool. All right, guys, so we'll be right back with some underrated characters from the DC universe.
That's why I fear it won't do. And they say that a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stand here and wait. I'll hold on to the wings of the eagles. Watch as we all fly away. And they're watching us. They're watching us as we all fly away. And they're watching us. They're watching us as we all fly away. And they're watching us. They're watching us as we all fly away. Whoa.
All hail the new king in town. Young and old, gather round. Yeah. Black and white, red and green. Don't forget the funkiest man you've ever seen.
Tell him what his name is.
Body man, body man, body like nobody can. Rules and regulations, no place in this nation. Body man, body people say now, yeah, 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 yeah. Somebody holler, you wanna party?
Ladies and gentlemen, more pictures, please.
Oh, baby. Oh, yeah. Where's the party man? Where's the party man? Baby. Baby. I'll rock the party. I'll rock the house. I'll rock the whole world. North, east, and south. In the west, south, you farm's fun. I want party man. You're like nobody. Party man. Dig the party man. Excuse me, boy. Dig it upside.
All hail the new king in town.
Ain't nothing but muffin. You got that buttoned up. You said break with the man. You better not put him in. Get it up. Party man.
What a name.
A party man. Party man. Party man. Young and old, gather round. Everybody hail the new king in town.
That was Party Man by Prince, famously used in the Tim Burton 1989 Batman movie with Michael Keaton, one of my favorite Batman movies. And before that, you heard Spider-Man from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man series. That was Nickelback with their song Hero, the title track from the movie that they used. So, Chris, of course, I know you were probably very happy to hear that Michael Keaton Batman song because you grew up watching that movie too.
Yeah, that movie's great. Michael Keaton's Batman was the best Batman, in my opinion, until Ben Affleck's Batman came along.
I agree with that. However, I do want to see a little bit more of his Batman because we did get like I want to say half a movie with his Batman. So I'm waiting it out to see either Justice League Part 1 or the Batman movie that he decides to do. But either way, I think he's right up there with Keaton.
I think just from the parts I've seen in the movie, a lot of fans said that Batman was one of the best parts of it. So, I mean, I can't wait to see what else he does in the new movies.
All right, so we're going into underrated characters of the DC universe. Up first is your favorite butler, Alfred Pennyworth.
Oh, man, can't say enough good things about this guy. I love Alfred. He's Bruce
Beautiful
Wayne's butler,
mustache.
caretaker, and valet. His sarcastic comments in all the animated films that he's been in, or even the Batman the Animated Series episodes, is uncanny. They even have him doing it in the Batman show. It's a new one with I can't remember like who wrote it or anything like that, but it was one of the newer Batman like series.
It's the one where the Joker looks more like an actual like jester with his hair, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about? Yeah. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
For those of you who don't know, when Bruce Wayne's parents died, Alfred raised him and then reluctantly helped him to become the Batman. His many skills range from cooking to medicine, making him Batman's strongest ally, in the sense that he's like always there for Batman. And like without Alfred, Batman pretty much wouldn't be where he is.
I agree on that 100%.
Another cool fact that we found out was that he spent years as a member of the British Guard and later became a member of MI5 before retiring and taking up his love of acting.
Which actually he was part of Great Britain's theater. So like I think it was the Globe. I think they mentioned, which was insane. Like because that's the Britain's actors of actors, like the top of the line.
Yeah, so he must have been pretty good at it. And unfortunately, following his father's death, he then actually became the Wayne family butler. So like his family passing on helped him to be led to the Waynes, which helped him to be Bruce's like go-to guy for everything.
As they say in, I believe it was the Batman v Superman. It always starts with death and ends with death. So the way he becomes Batman, Alfred even coming to him, it's all about death with Batman. I just thought like that's insane, like how everything comes together with that. And I think Alfred almost is Batman in a sense because of the fact that, I mean, if you watch Dawn of Justice, even the Christopher Nolan series, which I'm not a big fan to talk about of, don't get me wrong, they were great movies. I enjoyed them for what they were. Just to me, that wasn't what Batman was. But nonetheless, anybody that's played Alfred, whether it was in animated, any animated show, any show that was live action like Adam West's Batman, even the movies, I think every Alfred, in a sense, was part of Batman because of the fact that he took over the flight of the Batwing when Batman went out to go save Martha Kent in Dawn of Justice. He's the one that tests out all the gadgets, his voice changer in Dawn of Justice. He's the one that's talking to Bruce through a comm system in every single iteration of him.
Basically, Batman's got a lot to do, and Alfred helps him get some of that off his plate when in times that Batman can't be sitting around the cave when he's out fighting crime or solving a mystery or things like that. Being a detective.
In fact, I believe it was the Batman TV show that you were talking about. I believe there was a scene where Bruce Wayne gets confronted by, I want to say, either Vicky Vale or Gordon or whoever it was, and Alfred puts on the bat suit.
That was great. I love that. I actually watched that recently this summer, just out of like boredom. I was watching the Batman show on Netflix, and I saw that episode and it made me laugh. But yeah, we're gonna kick it off to the next person we're gonna be talking about. I don't know if you want to consider his name a person, but his name's Deadman.
Yes, and the reason we say he is possibly not a person is because originally his real name was Boston Brand, but things have changed. Deadman is a supernatural superhero and a ghost. He was murdered by an assassin, and his spirit haunts the mortal realm, bringing justice to those who deserve it. Although he cannot directly interact with the physical world. He can possess bodies of the living, control them, pretty much do whatever he wants with bodies. We saw that also in, I believe it was Justice League Unlimited, took over Batman's body and stopped someone from killing someone because he picked up a gun and shot someone. So Batman had to live with the fact that technically he killed someone.
Yeah. I mean, in the cartoon, they don't really show that like the person dies, but like Batman, it just shows Batman using a gun and getting like freaked out because it's something he said he would never do.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you look at the Batman Beyond series, and when it's Bruce Wayne still in old age and he's wearing the
That's
Batman
like the
Beyond
first
suit.
episode, yeah.
Yeah, he picks up the gun or whatever and like drops it, like shaking almost.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course we see his powers of the dead man consist of spiritual possession, invisibility, intangibility, supernatural knowledge, and of course flight. So this guy's pretty much Danny Phantom on roids.
Wow.
We're
bringing Danny Phantom back, huh?
It was a great show. Let's be real here.
It was a great show.
But so basically, he was a former circus performer, and he was even a part of the Black and White Lantern Corps.
Something I didn't know.
Yeah, I found that out doing research for this. Actually, his White Lantern Corps look is pretty much the same, just his entire suit is white now, like his skin.
Yeah.
And he has the White Lantern logo on his chest instead of the big D for D-Man.
That's cool.
And Dead Man, I'm sorry. And then the weird thing is his Black Lantern Corps suit is insane. It's really, he looks like the Grim Reaper, and he's just a skeleton floating in these like robes with a black ring. And I thought that was nuts to see. Like, I've never seen that before.
The Black and White Lanterns are really cool, especially in Blackest Night. That's one of the better titles. If you want to get into like Green Lanterns and all the other lanterns, that's a title to go to.
I highly recommend reading. And it was Brightest Day and Blackest Night. Those are the two series.
Yeah.
Great stuff out of there. But of course, I'm going to turn it over to Chris now, who's going to talk about one of his other favorites, Martian Manhunter.
So Martian, I feel like, is really underrated because even in the Justice League show, people don't realize how useful he is. I think in the first Justice League cartoon series, not Unlimited, but like the first one, he apparently he sees like into the future and sees that there's a meteor that's going to crash into Earth and lets the Justice League know. So if he didn't tell them, it would be goodbye Earth. Like,
let's be real here. That's how comics work, though. It's like, oh, we're not going to tell or do something like, oh, we have someone captured. Oh, we're not going to kill them or lock them away. Where they're just going to hold and talk for a little bit. Oh, they escaped. Like, let's be real here. So I'm glad he actually did that.
He's a cool character, and I want to learn more about him. And which we did along doing this research, was cool. His origin, like his parents gave birth to twins, the first one being him, and his name John Jones actually means light to the light. And he had a brother who was born a mutant and like kind of had trouble with his like communicating telepathically. His name is Malfayak, and his name actually means darkness in the heart. So it's like light versus dark, and they're brothers. I thought that was a really cool kind of thing to have there.
Oh, without a doubt.
And as years passed, his brother grew to despise everything about their culture. And in ambitious endeavor to commit full-scale genocide against his own people, he made this contagious virus that reacted to telepathic energy, so that if some Martian ever used it with I can't say this word. Telepathy. I can't say the word. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, telepathic. There you go.
He uses they use their powers. It would go from one Martian to the next, and the plague responded to their initial like fear of fire, and it caused them psychosomatic stress so intense that their bodies and minds would literally just burst into flames.
Which is nuts. And I mean, this is all terrifying. Because he felt like less of a person, because less of a Martian, I should say, because of the fact that he didn't have telepathic powers. Like, dude, come on now.
It's cool because you see like his brother and him, so he's the white side. So now like it's getting into like John tried to keep his wife and daughter from using their mental gifts, but they were unable. So they contracted the plague, and he had to watch his family burn to death before his eyes. If that doesn't build character, I really don't know what does.
That's almost, dare I say,
it shattered
Batman-esque.
It shattered his psyche, like his entire presence as as a alien, and drove him mad. I thought this was pretty funny. I found out that he was described as a Swiss Army knife of superheroes. Because he has so many different cool powers, like shape-shifting, invisibility, phasing, superhuman strength, regeneration, flight, enhanced senses, telepathy. I got that word right this time, guys. Telekinesis. He's also super smart. And he's the founding member of the Justice League of America, which is why I think he should get more attention. But what he's missing from the trailer of the new Justice League movie.
And I know they're saying Unite the Seven, which I see 6. There's the Flash. We have Cyborg, which they decided to include. I don't think he was part of the original, was he?
Superman, Wonder Woman. Then you have
Batman,
and then
Aquaman. Yeah, so that's 6.
So are they like hinting at Green Lantern? Or
I think so.
Like,
I think they're hinting at Green Lantern because they're going to do a Green Lantern Corps movie where it's supposedly either 2 or 3 Green Lanterns. Definitely Jon Stewart. They're going to do Hal Jordan, and then they're saying that it's either going to be Kyle Rayner or who's the one that everybody hates?
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering this.
He's redhead. I can picture him perfectly. I'm blanking on his name.
Can't think of it.
Oh man, but so it's either going to be Guy Gardner. Haha, I got it. So Guy Gardner or Kyle Rayner is going to be the third one.
There was an episode in Justice League Unlimited where they're doing roll call and they're like Guy Gardner here, Guy Gardner, and then like Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan look over at each other and like, he's not here. He's not. I don't. We don't think he's coming. He's not here. I was just like, how much can people hate this
He's
guy?
the one person that's actually been like kicked out of the Green Lantern Corps. Like Sinestro's left because he decided to create the Sinestro Corps, but he's the one Green Lantern that I know that was kicked out of the Green Lantern Corps just because he stunk so badly.
Oh, all right. Well,
But
I'm not
yeah.
trying to get off topic, but
So-
Nick's going to talk about one of the members of the Teen Titans next, Raven.
Yes. So actually, both of us did not know this until we did this research. Raven has an actual Earth name, and I had no idea. Her real name is actually Rachel Roth, which, I mean, Raven, I get where they got it from, but everybody calls her Raven, including her teammates. So it was weird to see. But she's got dark magic powers, and she has strong personal motivations and a desire to see good, which goes against her complete heritage, mostly because of the fact that, well, her father is a powerful demon named Trigon. So if you've seen Teen Titans Go, even I think
It was Justice League versus Teen Titans.
that's the
He was
other
like the
one.
main villain
Yeah.
of that movie, which is so cool.
Trigon is huge, he is scary, and he wants to enslave the planet. However, her mother is a human woman named Arella. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Arella. I'm guessing that's Arella. But she was living in the mystical realm of Azarath, which is one of the words that Raven uses for her powers. So every time she uses her powers, no matter it's whatever to do, she says Azarath, Metrion, Zinthos, which I thought was pretty cool. But with that, at all times, Raven must keep her emotions in check, or she risks unleashing the terrible might within her. So she is part demon, so because of that, she has to keep in check. Otherwise, boom, full demon, whole world's going to get enslaved. So with that, despite this, she has still managed to find a second family in her friends who love and accept her regardless of her troubled past, which I thought was pretty cool. She's a regular member of the Teen Titans. So if you saw the original cartoon, which I enjoyed so much, I have not watched Teen Titans Go because let's not talk about that. They're trying to make it a kid-friendly show.
Let's not.
But she is an original member, I believe. And they actually started to work on something with TBS, but it got canceled. They decided not to do it. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was TNT. They wanted to do a Titans live action show.
They
which I
changed
thought-
it from
yeah.
Titans to like Blackbirds, I think. They changed
Yeah.
the names, and I was like, okay, I'd just be happy to see it. You know?
Oh, believe me, I've been waiting and praying for a live action Nightwing, or even just a Dick Grayson that's actually good as Robin. Even
Here we go. Nick's
So-
rant on Nightwing. Let's
Oh,
let's get ready
please.
for it.
but either way, I want to see more of these characters become live action because of the fact that we've all grown up reading these comics. We've grown up watching these animated shows. Raven needs her live action time. I mean, we've finally got Cyborg live action time. We need Beast Boy. We need
I was gonna say
yeah.
the Teen Titans are all getting their own comics. Like Beast Boy's the only one who hasn't got his own. Like Starfire has her own, Cyborg has her own, Raven's actually getting her own, which I didn't even know. I found out
Yeah.
about like recently, and I was like, wow, awesome! I'm excited. Like, give me some Raven here. Like,
One of my friends back home is a huge Raven fan, and I took her to Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash up in Red Bank, right by where we live. And she's a huge Raven fan, and there was like she just never actually really read a lot of comics before. So I was like helping her, and we were talking to Mike Zapsik and a bunch of the other guys that worked there. And I think she bought a pop toy of Raven, and I think she got a Raven comic as well. That or a Teen Titans issue, which
that's like me with Batman.
Yeah.
I would literally walk into Jay and Silent Bob's and be like, all right, so what Batman do you got? See if any pops are there. If they have my Nightmare Batman, I'd pick it up even though I already have it. But like,
it sounds like me. Like, oh yeah, so Mike, well, we have this funny story.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man and Nightwing. Those are the two that I really go for. Sometimes Deadpool, depends, but Jay and Silent Bob is pretty much my place to go to get like older Spider-Man comics.
So there's this time.
Oh, here
and
we
I've told
go.
this story to my club as well as my friends and my girlfriend. Like, we've all laughed about it. And Nick doesn't like this. He kind of got used to it. So there's this time where I recommended Nick a Nightwing title by Chuck Dixon, right? It's really, really good comic. Kind of gives Bloodhaven a personality and everything. And I was like, Nick, you should really read this. I was telling this to him for a few weeks, maybe a couple months go by. We go to Jay and Silent Bob's together. Goes in, he asks Mike, he's like, oh, Mike, so I'm like a Nightwing, like Spider-Man fan. Like, what do you recommend for me? Brings out Nightwing by Chuck Dixon. And Nick's like, you know what?
Volume 1.
I'm going to buy it. And I was like, are you kidding? I've been telling you for months. And Mike Zapsik says one thing and you're like, Mike, take my money. So.
And I've decided to go back, and I told you, I completely forgot you told me about that. Time and time again.
It's okay. I just think it's so funny.
I know. But yeah, so I also give you credit for turning me into the Chuck Dixon Nightwing fan that I am today. Still got to pick up Volume 4, but I do definitely recommend Chuck Dixon's. It's a 4-part series so far. I don't know if they're doing a Volume 5, but they just released Volume 4, I believe, over the summer. I haven't picked it up yet, but it's a great series, and it's all about the old school before pre-New 52 Nightwing, where it's him getting out of Batman's shadow, and he's living in Bloodhaven. So with that, I guess we're gonna turn it over to another DC character who's in a way part of this, not Teen Titans, but Young Justice, because of course Nightwing was part of Young Justice. A character who's on Young Justice, both on the Young Justice team and the Justice League team. So, Chris, let's talk about Billy Batson, a.k.a. Shazam!
Oh, he's an awesome character. I wish they did more with him. The last thing I remember hearing about from my buddy was his Volume 1 of New 52 series, and then it got canceled, and he didn't get a Rebirth title. But, I'm not bitter.
Oh, no, not at all, Chris.
So originally his name was Captain Marvel. Obviously, you know why that was why that didn't work out, because Marvel has Captain Marvel and Marvel's in the name. So they're like, you gotta get rid of that. You gotta give him something else. So they did. So the name Shazam originally belonged to an ancient wizard. He lived in the Rock of Eternity and guarded the 7 deadly sins. The wizard bestowed powers on Billy Batson, and which is anytime he says the word Shazam, he's instilled with a bunch of different powers. I couldn't even list them. It's like the Wisdom of Solomon and a few different others. Like, if you want to look it up, be my guest.
Super strength. He's basically like Superman.
He's like a bunch of gods in one. And it's
yeah.
just cool to see that. And
he turns into a human form, an adult form, I should say.
Yeah, so pretty much like his whole thing was like speaking the wizard's name, transforming to the adult Captain Marvel, obviously now Shazam, and now he begins using this name as an alias, like instead of Captain Marvel, because of the whole thing with Marvel. But yeah, I just think he's an interesting character. Something really bad happened to him in the Injustice video game, and I was really sad.
Oh, don't tell me this, because I haven't played. Oh, I mean, you can tell me, but I haven't played it, and I've watched YouTube videos here or there, but
all right. Well, I won't say it. Just something really bad happens to him, and it's done by a certain person you never expected to be done by. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll let you think about it.
Chris and I are going to have a little talk about this after the show now.
So now Nick's going to kick it off to the third Robin of the Bat family, Tim Drake.
Yes, of course. Tim Drake, a.k.a. Robin, also a.k.a. Red Robin, after we got a little bit older. But, of course, yes, okay, I got that. Yum, haha.
Sorry.
But he is the third Robin and obviously a part of a member of the Bat family. And he is the only Robin, the only person to ever guess who Batman was. He was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're Bruce Wayne." Did anybody tell you? No, I just figured it out. What? That's insane. Like, originally he became the third Robin following Dick Grayson's ascension to Nightwing, and of course the death of Jason Todd. I love that story. With that, he figured out Bruce Wayne's identity, obviously, and decided to prove himself in combat, and was taken on for training and would eventually become one of the world's greatest detectives and martial artists. Chris and I always have this debate. Who do you think would be a great successor to Batman? I mean, for me, I think Nightwing, just because of the fact that he was the first Robin. He, to me, I always thought he was the best detective out of the bunch. But of course, I know, Chris, you always talk about Tim Drake being a great detective, and I mean, hey, he's one of the best. But in the Battle for the Cowl story arc, we briefly actually saw Tim Drake picking up the mantle of Batman.
Batman.
However, Dick Grayson took the role permanently until that story arc ended, and we saw him become Batman with Bruce and Talia al Ghul's son, Damian Wayne, becoming Tim's successor as the fourth Robin. So, I mean, let's be real here. I loved Dick Grayson as Batman, but
Everybody
of course,
does.
oh yeah. But of course, he fights back and is like, you know what? I've lived my whole life trying to get out of his shadow, and now I have to be you. Like, he grew up as a kid saying how much he wanted to be Batman because he was Robin. But once he grew up and realized what it was, like, I get what you're saying.
I feel like people really just go to, out of all the Robins, they had to Dick Grayson or Jason Todd, and I feel like Tim Drake like falls between the cracks, and it kind of like bothers me because I'm like, guys, you should probably like pay attention to all these guys because they all deserve like attention, you know. And Tim Drake, the fact that he figured out who Batman was alone and didn't have anybody tell him, just says a lot about his character and his he's one of the best detectives out of the Robins in general.
I completely agree with you there. I mean, I was watching when we were doing some research. I was trying to find some video that would teach me a little bit more about Tim Drake, and I saw something about Young Justice because I just finished that show yesterday, and I texted Chris, and he was like, "Finally!" But basically, I thought it was like something actually from Young Justice, and it was actually someone like dubbed over Tim Drake and Nightwing, and they're talking to each other. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just wanted to say like, oh yeah, I'm Tim Drake, so don't confuse me with Dick Grayson." And like Nightwing walks in, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Dick Grayson." Like, hey, so a lot of people think that they're the same person, and I'm surprised that they actually do. I mean, let's be real here. There are some like leisure readers, so it could be a little difficult to understand. They all look pretty much the same, but I think Tim Drake has his own place with obviously Batman and the Bat family. Obviously, when he grows up, he decides to ditch the Robin suit and become Red Robin, his own character, in a sense like Nightwing descending from that. And he is a founding member of the Young Justice team in the comics, alongside his closest friend Superboy, who is a clone of Superman, and Kid Flash, Wally West. And he has also been a member of the Teen Titans, which is weird because honestly, like, we watched that Young Justice show and right away they were like, Dick Grayson is in it.
That's because they established Dick Grayson in the first season as Robin, so they needed him. Like, it made sense for him to become the leader because they were just like, "Oh, Dick, just move aside. Tim's the leader now." Like, it was like he wasn't established in the first season. Like, who are you?
Oh, I know.
You know.
So with that though, I mean, hey, weird. Jesse McCartney. There we go. Jesse McCartney, that singer from back in like the early 2000s that all those tween girls loved so much.
He said he's Nightwing's
He's
voice.
Nightwing's voice. What? But yeah, so that show was great. I highly recommend that. Of course, it introduces a lot more lesser known characters, even ones that we didn't even talk about today, just because we have so limited time on here. It talks about so many from the DC universe that are just unrecognized so much. Red Tornado. I loved that character. and I thought he was
like
great.
He's like the vision of DC's universe.
I agree.
It'd be cool to see him in the movie. I'm pretty sure he was put on Supergirl and he didn't look that great. I've heard that. I've also heard Martian Manhunter didn't look that great, and he was also on Supergirl.
They made him, to my opinion, because I saw a picture of it. He looked like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z, pretty much. Just Piccolo with like armored plating suit, pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to say WRKC is the home of Beetle Ed's Fab 4 Hour. Tune in live every Friday night at 7 for rare Beatles tracks and great interviews. Only on 88.5 FM WRKC King's College Radio.
And with that, we will be right back, and we're going to play one more song for you guys. It is My Chemical Romance's Desolation Row cover. It's obviously a Bob Dylan song, but they decided to cover it for the Watchmen movie, also another highly recommended movie. That was My Chemical Romance's cover of the Bob Dylan song Desolation Row for the Watchmen movie. Another great movie that I highly recommend, especially the director's cut from Zack Snyder. Chris,
we mentioned that in one of our last shows. It was that movie. I have to say, if you are not even like into comic books at all or superheroes or anything like that, like you could watch this movie and you you're gonna start turning and be like, oh, maybe I actually do like this kind of stuff. I feel like the movie does that to you because the scenes, the cinematography is great.
Oh, insane.
And the story, like the Watchmen graphic novel, is one of the top graphic novels in the top 100 graphic novels in that list. And it's people should read it. Everyone
And now
should
they're
read
bringing
it.
them back into the DC universe with the whole Rebirth thing.
Oh my gosh, that blew my mind at the
I
end
know.
of the first
the
Rebirth
nice
issue.
little pin into the Batcave.
I was like, no, man, no.
All right, quickly. Favorite Watchmen character?
Rorschach.
You took the words right out of my mouth, man. I was hoping you had somebody else, but yeah, I love Rorschach. There's just something about. I mean, maybe it's because he's kind of like Batman.
I just like his.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like his personality. I like the fact that he's like really dark and he wears this ink blot mask. You never you can't even see his face, and you're terrified of him. And he doesn't have powers. He's just this guy that can has gadgets and stuff, and is a good fighter.
Yeah,
he's like a poor version of Batman in the sense because he doesn't have power. He doesn't have money. He's trying to survive in this cruel world that the Watchmen are placed in.
And of course, my favorite scene is when he goes to jail and he's asking about the mask, going, "Where's my face? Where's my face? Give me my face."
He's in this cafeteria.
And this is my favorite scene in the entire movie.
He is just he's like, "I don't think you understand this dude. That one dude's giving him crap. I'm not locked in here with you." And then he takes this thing of hot, boiling, cooking oil and throws it on this guy's face behind him who's about to stab him and was like, "You're locked in here with me." And I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
He was so good.
I just was done after that point. I was
Such
like,
a good
yes.
He's under, the Watchmen are pretty underrated as well. I feel like they need more attention.
Definitely. But with that, unfortunately, looks like our time is up. Be sure to stay tuned for the next show with Sam Zavada. And thank you all for joining us. This has been Geek Week with Chris and Nick.
I'm Chris Natali.
And I am Nick Rotundo.
Be sure to check out our SoundCloud account, soundcloud.com/geekweek885. If you missed any part of the show or want to share it with family or friends, be sure to like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/geekweek885.
And tune in for our next week to hear about our our next show coming up, which is superhero facts that you will not learn from the movies.
That was Geek Week with Chris and Nick. Be sure to tune in next week at 6 p.m.